Well, welcome. Hi, everyone. It's another Friday. I'm so glad you're here. And we're so excited to be able to talk about a really current and recent topic. I've had lots of emails about this topic, and it has to do with college athletes. My name is Cyndy McDonald, and I'm the host for the Friday Forums. And I'm so glad to have an expert, Katie Andersen, with me today. And also we have Carmen Gallegos, who is going to help monitor your questions and the comments, and she is my right-hand person. So I'm really excited to have Katie here today. She is with College Fit OC. She's been a college consultant for many years. She also does the studentathleteadvisors.com. So welcome, Katie. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much. So I'll just get started quickly with, I'm going to share my screen here, and I'm hoping, tell me if this comes out looking okay.
And while you do that, let's have everybody put in, we like to know where people are coming from. So we want to, as you're logging in, go ahead and put in your name and where you're located, because in that way you can see what our audience is all about. And then also let us know if you work with athletes or not. So you can say yes, no, not yet, something like that. So glad to see April, you're the very first one to post. Glad to see you. Let us know where you're at. So Lisa, she's from Illinois, works with athletes. Not yet. St. Petersburg. Not with athlete. Terry, good to see you. I'm so glad to see everyone. Colleen and Katie and Marilyn, April, Leanne, just what a wonderful audience. Look, Katie, you have all these people who are just waiting to hear what you have to share. We've got Ncaa, Brazil, Marcia, glad to have her, Tampa, Florida. Jeffrey. So we have a great dynamic audience. And I know that people have a lot of questions about this topic. I haven't had parents ask me about it, but I know they will probably ask me, which is why, Katie, I invited you to come and talk about this. So let's learn more about the NCAA and name and images. What is this going to mean for our students?
Right. So, well, thank you so much, everybody. I appreciate that whenever the subject of athletes comes up, I regularly get phone calls. So thanks so much. I appreciate it. So I will just start by saying that this is a very new topic. I mean, this is very, very recent, and you'll see in a minute when I start kind of presenting about how fresh this is in the news. And so it is evolving, and I cannot call myself an expert in this field on this particular topic yet, but I am learning like all of you, and I am trying to stay on top of the news. So there may be questions that you have that I simply don't know the answers to, but at this point, I think we are all learning, and I'm happy to take those questions and try to figure it out and get back to you.
So Katie, we are seeing your presenter view, not like your view with the notes and the upcoming slides.
Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing, and I'll try to share it again. I'm going to say,
because you probably, yeah. So Jeffrey, people notice.
Settings. Hold on. I'm going to end the slideshow. We'll see if we can do it this way. Screenshot here, share, and then I'll go full screen again. How's that?
That's
can you
better.
see?
That's better.
Yep.
Okay, but can you see the whole presentation?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, we just see the slide that you want us to see.
Okay, but it has the basketball in it, correct? You can see the whole screen, or just because it's showing me that it's just a portion of it?
We're just, the basketball is cut off on this side.
Cut off. Okay, this is a little bit concerning. So I'm going to stop sharing again and slideshow. I might need to present it like this. If, is that going to be okay?
We don't see. And if you click on the presentation, what do you get?
That's what happens is it cuts it
goes
off.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I will just minimize this as much as I can.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
So I want to show, so you've got a number of people. It looks like we've got Jenny and Liz. Some people work with athletes. Some have not started working with athletes. Some do work with athletes. Like Jenny says, she doesn't typically work with D1 students. So we've got a wide range of experience, and just like us as consultants, we have that wide range. So that gives you a framework.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, so let's just dive in here and start out with what is name, image, likeness. It's being, a lot of people will refer to this as NIL. Well, it's been going, this whole idea has been going on for a long time. I think it's been under discussion for quite a while. But in June 21st of 2021, so only just a few months ago, the Supreme Court ruled against the NCAA in a case that was the NCAA versus Alston. I'm not going to really get into what that was all about. However, just know that the outcome of that was that on June 30th, 2021, the NCAA, all divisions, Division 1, 2, and 3, adopted a temporary policy to suspend the name, image, likeness rules in all sports starting July 1st. So this literally happened in a matter of like almost 2 weeks, where the decision came down from the Supreme Court, and then the action was taken immediately. And so we'll get into what all these name, image, likeness rules are all about. But just know that this temporary policy is temporary because they still need to have some discussion about this. There's still more things that need to get flushed out about it. So just know that it applies to all colleges in all states. It applies to current and prospective student athletes. They are working on a more permanent solution, and I'm not sure what the timing is on that in terms of when they expect that to come out, but they are working on federal legislation that will be a more permanent solution for this particular topic. And the NCAA has a really good website where, and I've given the address of it here, basically www.ncaa.org/about/taking-action. That is a website that summarizes all of the relevant topics. It has a really good FAQ, frequently asked questions document on there to kind of address some of the legalese about this and make it more practical. So I think that is something I would absolutely refer you to learn more about this topic. There have been a ton of articles in the news written about this, and taking it from various perspectives with different sports and things, and trying to break it down. But I feel like that website, the NCAA website, does a pretty good job of giving you the overview. And please, as we're going through this, don't be afraid to ask questions, put them in the chat, and Carmen will stop me if whatever I'm talking about is relevant at the moment. So just know that before this rule change happened, student athletes could not monetize their status as an athlete while playing college sports. And that's really the crux of this whole thing. They could not make money based on who they were as an athlete, their name, their picture, their image, or their likeness. And that has been under discussion for quite some time, primarily because the schools are making a ton of money off of these athletes, their football programs, their basketball programs. I mean, there are a lot of sports where these kids are helping build quite a presence out there, for their, in their alumni networks and sports fans. So the student athletes have been arguing for quite some time that they should be able to kind of fight for themselves and be able to monetize their own success as a student athlete. So that's really what this is all about. And notice that this is part of that website that I mentioned, and it talks about the statements and positions, and it gives a bit of a history going back to 2019, letting you know kind of what's all happening, and at least giving you some chronological order about that. Okay, so in terms of exactly what name, image, and likeness activities might include regarding receiving compensation, that would be in exchange for things like autographs, photographs, making a personal appearance somewhere, starting your own business, providing lessons and camps that have your name attached to it, or the athlete's name attached to it, and providing services that are based on the student athlete's expertise as an athlete. Merchandise that might be, t-shirts, cups, who knows? Anything that might be any sort of merchandise with the person's name or image or likeness. This also includes third-party products or services like advertising and social media, which is huge. This is the social media followings, and I'll talk a little bit about this. It's really, it is incredible how much of a presence a student athlete can build for themselves if they were allowed to. So one thing that's kind of interesting here is that now, under this new rule, student athletes will be able to use professional service providers. This would be including agents, tax advisors, marketing consultants, attorneys, brand management companies, etc. They would be allowed to use those types of services to help build their presence. And just know that because this is all very new, it's really, I think, very, very important that there will be a lot of things that will be, I think, in flux here for a little while until the rules sort of settle in on what's allowed. I guess there's definitely some rules here that they say are allowed and not allowed. But the question is, like, who's going to try to break those rules, and what creative ways are they going to try to do that? So just know that any name, image, likeness activities that a student athlete may participate in should be reported to their athletics compliance officer at the college that they attend. This is all about transparency and just making sure that that these kids, when they are doing these activities, that they are above boards, and that it's clear that they're trying to follow the rules the best they can. Because the last thing you need to do is open the Pandora's box and end up getting yourself in trouble for something that you thought was okay because of how the rules were stated and how you understood them.
Katie, are the rules different for D1, D2, D3?
Nope, they are the same for all division levels at this point. And again, who knows what the future might hold, but for now it is applied equally among all the division levels. Great question. Okay, there will be some limitations. And, I've noted a couple of the key ones here. Student athletes may not be paid for doing nothing. There needs to be, they need to provide a service. There needs to be something there. They can't just receive money for doing nothing. And name, image, likeness may not be used as a recruiting inducement to attend a particular university. This is also very important. The rules prohibit pay for play, payment, in exchange for athletic achievement. So again, these things, I think they're clear, but there may be ways in which we haven't even thought about that. They kind of border on, well, I'm not really sure. So I think this is kind of that area we were talking about with the Pandora's box. So the NCAA institutions may not be involved in the name, image, likeness activities beyond promotion of that is normally provided by the university. So again, there needs to be a clear line there between what the universities would typically provide under normal rules and what those kids may participate in. And I'll give you an example of kind of how some student athletes are already taking advantage of this. This is probably one of the biggest areas where I think this could, it should be clear cut, but maybe not. Student athletes may not promote commercial products prohibited by the NCAA legislation or by the institution. And that would include alcohol, tobacco, gambling, things like that. I think that these are areas where while we think that these areas are clear cut, who knows, they may not be under certain circumstances. So this is one I think that the NCAA is going to have to be super, super clear about. And high school prospective athletes who may be, not even in college yet, but who are trying to utilize this rule. Right now, there are certain states that have clear rules about this. And until things are a little more solidified from a federal perspective, if you're a prospective student athlete, you should definitely check with your high school athletics association to make sure that you are in compliance with whatever the rules are in your state. Again, this is a moving target we're dealing with here. And so I think that's just the safe thing to do, is to make sure if you are trying to utilize this and you're not in college yet, that you check. And that is stated clearly in the NCAA frequently asked questions. So that's just to make sure that everybody's above boards. And again, I brought up the Pandora's box of potential issues here. Again, this issue of professional service providers and agents who may be involved in helping to build this likeness. I think there's definitely a potential for abuse there, that we need to be very, very careful that people don't overstep their boundaries. And for all those people who may be looking for creative ways to support student athletes, and we haven't anticipated what that looks like yet, just because of, technology, social media, kind of this whole thing being a bit of a moving target. So then I want to give you one final example, and there are lots and lots of examples. I went looking for just various news articles about kids who had already taken advantage. Well, these twins took advantage on day one that this was allowed. Hannah and Haley Cavender of Fresno State basketball, which is a Division I basketball program, they became spokeswomen for Boost Mobile and were compensated for that. They're twins, so they have a little bit of an advantage there, and very good-looking twins. So I think that's putting out some great athletic girls who can be wonderful spokeswomen for that brand. They just took full advantage of this. So this potential impact is that student athletes can now think about coming into college with a social media following, which I think that every college out there is looking, everybody is looking to build their social media presence. And so now that this is allowed, I think this can be a very interesting tool. And then also the financial support that these student athletes may receive could also help to cover the cost of college, because we all know that athletic scholarships, while they may be great for football and basketball at the D1 level, most athletes do not get full scholarships. Most of them are getting partials at best, or even nothing. So that's where I think that being able to build a little bit of financial support for yourself is a wonderful opportunity. But on the flip side of this, go ahead.
The twins wear Fresno State gear in the Boost Mobile marketing activities.
So that's a great question. This is where I would say I am not sure. Again, this borderline between being able to promote how much you can promote your school in association with your name, image, likeness. Great question. And that would be one I would have to research further to know the specific answer to that one. Any other questions?
We do have a scenario here. If a coach or athletics department gives incorrect information to a student athlete, who is liable legally?
That's another really great question. I do know that athletics departments right now, I've heard people telling me that athletics departments are all, they were all over this from the minute that it became a solidified issue. And they are already gathering, and they've got people in their compliance departments who are gathering information, putting out documentation on what is allowed, what isn't allowed, where where that line is, and also education and training for their athletes and for their coaches. So I guarantee you that every kid who is a student athlete at in NCAA school right now is getting information about this. I will say that I'm not convinced that that every athlete is now going to become a social media, phenom. I think that this is a potential opportunity for some kids, mostly playing at probably a high level. Maybe, just the star of their local, town, whatever school they're at in their local town could be an opportunity. You don't have to be playing at a D1 school in a big football program or basketball program to be able to make, money. You can just be the star of your own team, or, be somebody on that team who can utilize this. But I don't think that this is going to have a massive impact on every single student athlete out there. I don't see that everyone is going to take advantage of this. But it is a great opportunity. Any other questions?
I don't think so right now.
Okay. So Cyndy, did you have some questions?
Yes, I do. Let's go ahead and pull, just
Stop sharing.
Yeah, I'll turn my camera back on. There was one question about, which state? You were talking about the state to check on, the rules of the state. Is it the state they're going to college in, or the state where they're from?
So in the case, so there are certain states, and I would have to go look up the list of the states that are included in this, that had already kind of dealt with some legislation, especially for prospective student athletes. They're still in high school. So again, this would be one where you should, if a student athlete wants to try to take advantage of this, they should ask, if they're still in high school, they should ask their athletic association for their high school in their own state, just to clarify what those rules are for where they are. But they should also, if they are already in discussions with they've made a verbal commitment to a college, if they're already, they won't be signing NLIs yet, all the kids who signed them are already done, but the next round of kids who would be signing national letters of intent, it's worth having a conversation with your compliance department at the college where you are planning to attend, to make sure that all the, whatever it is that you're doing right now is in compliance with, where you're going, the states you're going to, and the college that you'll be attending. I would hope that they are already reaching out to all of those athletes who they are trying to recruit, to make sure that none of that comes back to bite them when they do sign. And I would anticipate, and I don't know this for a fact, but I would anticipate that these things will start showing up in national letter of intent letters, and some of all of that stuff that has to happen. That's the legal part of becoming a scholarship athlete, or even just an athlete at a university. I don't know that you need to even be receiving a scholarship to be, part of this, right? You could just be a walk-on. But
just to clarify, the national letters of intent only applies to D1 schools, correct?
National letter of intent applies to both D1 and D2. That is why the kids who go through the NCAA eligibility center process, that's only for D1 and D2 athletes, but they verify your academic eligibility. And again, this might be another place where we see these kinds of questions being asked as part of the eligibility process, to make sure that you haven't violated any of it before. They check for amateurism, they check to make sure you're an amateur athlete. And they're probably going to also start asking questions, I would guess, about this sort of thing as well.
Sorry,
I don't know that for a fact. I'm just anticipating.
Name, image, likeness.
Name, image, likeness. Yes.
So this only applies to NCAA. What about NAIA or in the junior, the NJCAA?
Right. And so those are questions I at this point, I don't know where we stand with those particular, with the NAIA or National Junior College or California Community College. I would anticipate that once the NCAA does something like this, that we will see the trickle down happen if it hasn't
Mhm.
already. I tried doing some research last night. Just quickly to kind of see if anything had changed. I wasn't able to find anything right away, but those are all the things that I think once you see this happening at the NCAA level, that it would start to, have an impact on those other organizations as well. But again, that's up for, unless anybody has newer, I know we have a couple people on the call who may be like myself, working with a lot of student athletes who may be more up to speed on this particular issue. If you are, please speak up. If you know something I don't know, because again, I feel like a little bit like we're in COVID land where things were just changing every single day. We were all watching the news to see are we doing test scores? Are we not doing test scores?
Right. Yeah.
So
All that.
If you're one more question in the chat in the Q&A. If you're receiving money for NIL, are you still considered an amateur athlete?
I believe, yes, that is a separate issue from being a professional athlete. Again, I think that the question there has to be, what is it that you are doing to use your name, image, likeness? And if that is in any way associated with professional sports, then I think that could be a zone of, okay, we need to be careful about this. So, but as far as I understand it, they're two separate issues and they need to be looked at separately. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So for us that work with high school students, they have an athletic, most of them will have somebody who's responsible for that at the high school. Typically it's the athletic director, although I think some high schools also counselors might deal with this. So how do you think how good do you think the NCAA is at communicating this kind of thing to the athletic directors or the high schools themselves?
That's a really great question. I find that there is a wide range of, skill sets out there when it comes to the athletic directors, the guidance departments. I know that there are many guidance departments that are just so overwhelmed with what they do that they kind of might have someone who kind of knows the NCAA eligibility center. This reaches into a realm that is far beyond whatever a guidance department would typically deal with. I think that for around me anyway, in Southern California, I find that most guidance departments have at least one person who's sort of their NCAA expert. And I would assume that in there, they have, at least around us, they kind of have an annual training that they go to. And I would assume that this issue will come up, but I really don't expect, guidance departments are focused on transcripts and eligibility. And so hopefully they will get some training on this, but I don't know how much they'll be able to really have an impact. When it comes to the athletic directors, again, I would hope that, they've had to get used to the fact that a lot of these kids do have social media accounts. The schools have to deal with kids who are abusing their social media accounts. So, I think that athletic directors may be a little more in tune with this. I wouldn't be surprised if they did some sort of training with any kid who's an athlete at a high school, or maybe even club athletic programs. Again, it's not the high school running it, but their own club athletic programs where the kids are playing. They're paying to be a part of a club athletics team. That they would kind of help drive a little bit of this issue because they want to make sure that their kids are eligible and that they're not breaking the rules and that they are aware. Another issue that came around within the last couple of years was safe sport, which was all about physical, abuse. And, we saw it happen with the gymnastics teams and, people doing things they shouldn't have been doing. And now safe sport training, it's kind of interesting. I see it being much more of an issue in sports like swimming and water polo. I believe it's supposed to be in every sport, but I talked to some kids and they're like, I've never heard of that before. So, it'll be interesting to see how this particular thing, because it has to do with money and the ability to make money, if that becomes a little more popular topic for both schools and club teams to kind of talk to their kids about what it is, how they can use it appropriately and how, what to do if they are choosing to use it so that they can be safe with it. I mean, that is my hope, but I really couldn't tell you. I'll be curious to see how it rolls out at our local high school, because I think they do need to address it.
Yeah.
D3, we have a couple questions in the chat. Do D3 athletes have the same compliance rules?
So Division III schools they kind of decide on their own compliance rules. They do not, those kids who go to a D3 school do not have to go through the eligibility center the same way that D1 and D2 kids do. The D3 schools themselves manage eligibility on a case-by-case basis. And that's up to them as to how they want to do that. So that's why it's, if, for example, if you have a student athlete who is kind of looking at both types, maybe they're looking at the lower end of Division I and they're looking at the higher end of Division III, and they don't really know where they're going to end up being recruited, have them fill out. On the NCAA Eligibility Center, there is one place where they can join for free. That is the undecided Division III category. And they can get themselves an account with the NCAA Eligibility Center. And it gets them an ID number, which they can then tell the coaches that they have an ID number, they're in the system. And then as soon as they get a little more solid with a D1 or D2 coach who says, yeah, I want to recruit you, then they can pay to have their account rolled over to a paid account. And that way they're already, it's easy. It's just it's a credit card transaction. I think it's $75 or something to get to the next level. And that way they can do the full, if the coach wants to recruit them, the coach puts in a request on the back side of the NCAA Eligibility Center and puts the student on an institutional request list. And then that student will be reviewed at the NCAA, given the stamp of approval. The clearinghouse is what it used to be called. So they clear the student through the clearinghouse, and then that student is eligible to be recruited by any Division I or Division II school, and still open for Division III if that ends up being the answer. But just know that, the question about NAIA came up, and just know that the NAIA has their own eligibility process they have a portal that is just meant for eligibility just for NAIA schools. So they have a separate process.
Okay. There was a money limit to still be considered an amateur. Some tennis players could receive some money for their victories in pro tennis tournaments. Has that limit gone away with this?
That's a really great question, and I do not know the answer to that. So that would be one we'd have to research to find out what that looks like.
So Katie, I think, two questions. One is, we talk about social media, and we can see where this name, image, and likeness is going to be a big part of social media. Students had to be careful about what they post on social media. And I know sometimes coaches or colleges would look at students' social media accounts, especially in a high profile, recruitment or something, to make sure there wasn't negative social media. Are they now going to be looking at social media to see if there's this, name, image, likeness out there as well? Does that add to what the coaches and the colleges are going to be checking on for students?
I think so. I think they're not going to have, it's kind of funny to me how I'm sure that most of these athletic departments did not realize that they were going to have a whole team of social media people who are going to have to deal with just this issue. And I promise you, it already is a thing that between admissions and athletics, that they have people who make sure that there's someone watching over all of that. And, for anybody who's a prospective student athlete who's coming in the door, I promise you, they've got people who are looking out for what are they doing on social media? And are they making money, and are they doing it in a way that is legal? That's all. Anytime, when it comes to like an official or unofficial visit, right? The coaches have to be super careful about where does that line get crossed? Well, the minute you buy someone a Coke on a visit, it just went from being an unofficial to an official visit. This is, I guess, one of those topics where I think that those schools are going to have to be watching out. And I am sure that, like I said earlier, I think that there's a gray zone here where I guess they're just going to have to be making it up as they go when they see things that are borderline, like, I don't know what to do about that. I think that this is why I think that they need time to discuss what that federal legislation looks like and be prepared that it might have to shift and morph and change over time to keep up with technology and to keep up with what kids are doing.
The current landscape.
Yep.
Well, and hopefully there'll be some grace, just like there's been grace during COVID for, grades and testing and things like that. It's like, you're doing something you've always done. Now the rules have been set. Are you on the right side of the rules or the wrong side? You haven't done anything different. And so, so where does that put us as advisors? What do you recommend that we do as advisors to help navigate through this?
Well, I will say that when you first interview a potential client, and you're talking to them about, okay, so you think you want to be a recruited athlete, I always ask, I have a whole section of my intake form that has to do with athletics, and I have them tell me everything about, what team you play for, your high school team, your club team, who are your coaches, give me their contact information. Do you have an online profile with, there's so many online profiles now where you can put up your information about, athletics and academics and all your stats and all of that. So I will be asking, are you taking advantage of these name, image, likeness rules? And if so, how? Because I don't think you should assume that it's all happening through social media, although I would guess that most of it probably will. But things like running camps, doing promotional, showing up at events, being a spokesperson of some sort in a physical setting versus doing something online. I think that you just don't know. So to ask that question up front, just like I ask families, and I don't assume anything about, do you have a learning disability? Do you have a 504 or an IEP? Because I can't tell you the number of families that say they avoid the question, and then 6 months later, things aren't going well. And I have to say, okay, again, let me ask it the question again. Is there something you need to tell me? Because I can't help you if you don't give me the full picture of what it is we're dealing with here, right? So I just think from our perspective, as a counselor, you should be asking that question. Are you taking advantage of name, image, likeness? And if you are, in what way are you doing those things? And please make sure you inform me whenever you do something, so that we make sure that you're telling the right people. You're informing your high school, you're telling, if you're talking to colleges, that you're informing them of kind of what you're doing, so that you keep it all above boards and nothing comes back to bite you in the end. Again, I kind of feel like most of the kids that we all work with are not the blue chip athletes who are the top recruits who will probably have the most to gain from all of this. I think most of the kids we're going to be dealing with are pretty average athletes who, maybe they can a little bit, but it's not going to be, millions of dollars we're talking about here. Although if you read the news, you will see that there are kids who have already signed $1 million contracts to be, the next spokesperson for whatever. And they are full, but those are, again, big names, big faces, big sports, big money. So, I think for most of it, it's not going to be an issue, but it's really important that we ask the question. And by asking the question, we help to educate the families about what that is. Half the time when I ask these questions, the families are clueless about, wow, I didn't even know that was a thing. I didn't know we should be doing that. So part of it is just opening that discussion, right? And letting them know, informing them and giving them, maybe prepare a flyer that, if, depending on what kind of information you provide to your families. My guess is that this is, in the NCAA eligibility book, I still haven't received the new one yet, but in this guide for the college-bound student athlete, pretty certain you're going to see the next update to this is going to have name, image, likeness in it.
I was just thinking about that too. I was like, how long is it going to take them to get that in there? Because
and it's kind of funny because I haven't seen the new one come out yet, and I'm wondering if part of it is like solidifying all of this stuff so that they make sure it doesn't miss, because once this gets printed, it's done for a year. So so hopefully we'll see kind of all of that and just making sure that people are paying attention.
So do you think
When you talk about doing research, where should we go beyond internet searches and webinars, for example? Is there an NCAA person that will take questions from IECA consultants?
There is a website. I think I put it in. I'm going to pull up my presentation again. It's called, I'm going to see if I can post this in the chat. Here, I just posted it in the chat. And that is the website that hopefully, and I'm sure that there's a contact person listed on there who can take questions about this. But that is really the page on the NCAA website that deals with all of these issues. And again, as they make new announcements and come out with new, and then I just saw that Caleb, I think, posted that you can, ncaa.org, you can now download it. So so they realize that they need to get stuff out to people as fast as they can because, again, they don't want anything like this to blow up and be out of control. But I do know that as soon as July, like in June, I was already hearing from friends in the university setting that their compliance departments were working on information to, again, proactively educate and train current athletes, potential, prospective athletes, coaches, and anybody who is going to be engaged in monitoring this from the school's perspective.
That's great. That's great.
There's some questions in the Q&A. Do you think if a student is getting money from this, their need-based financial aid will be reduced?
Okay, there's a really great question. This is another part of that Pandora's box I was talking about, because just like when you receive outside scholarship money from, say, Rotary or your local Lions Club or your high school or whatever, this may fall into the category of you need to have reported all money that you have received, and we will adjust our financial aid offering to you based on that information. So yeah, I wouldn't, again, I can't answer for every school out there, but I anticipate that this will have an impact and that they will expect that every student athlete who is earning money in this way, that they need to report it.
Yeah.
And that it may have an impact.
Definitely. Yeah. Because the colleges are going to take advantage and it might impact the athletic scholarships that they get too, right?
Possibly. Absolutely. And I think that's an interesting question when a kid says, well, but I just built a following of, 500,000 people. Isn't that worth something? There's an interesting question, it's you can't, the tit for tat sort of, I'm bringing followers. What does this mean to you? I just think there's a lot there that's going to have to be discussed, and every school is going to have to figure out, how to comply with the federal or state policies on this, and then how they, as the school, as an institution, wants to view those issues.
Well, it ties back to what you were saying before. It's like, well, can I wear my team's athletic? So if I've got these 500,000 people that follow me, then they'll see, my team and such. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of gray lines here for sure. Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Carmen.
Can these amateur athletes pay agents or social media managers to create and update their social media sites?
As far as I'm concerned, yes. They did say they would allow agents to be involved. So that was that list I mentioned earlier. I'll read it off again. Hold on, let me find it. So professional service providers may be used. For example, agents, tax advisors, marketing consultants, attorneys, brand management companies. So it sounds to me as though, based on what I've read, that you can engage in a relationship with those types of people to help you build your social media presence. So yes. But again, I would keep, if you are going that far, that you need a tax advisor or a brand management company to be managing your name, image, and likeness. I would hope you're keeping very good records of how much money you have spent on these things and how much you have received in income. Again, I think this is a giant Pandora's box of, wow, I didn't realize. So,
Well, but it is a way of showing, I mean, it's a step into the modern world, right? The world that we're living in, the digital world, and the world that our students live in. So I'm surprised it's taken the Supreme Court and the NCAA this long to even tackle the question. So, but yeah, so.
well, I am excited to be able to see kids being able to benefit from, I mean, you see it all over the place that the schools have been able to take advantage of having these really, amazing athletes at their school and raise a whole lot of money for the school. But the kids have been unable to benefit personally. And I know that's a slippery slope, but I think that I hope that this is headed in the right direction. I just hope that the gray zone doesn't get abused and we see more chaos as a result. I really hope that doesn't get too out of control, and that those issues get handled early on and settle down, and there are clear lines. That would be my hope.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you anticipate these new social media opportunities will take the place of sites like Be Recruited?
Not necessarily. No. Well, I don't know, but I think that what Be Recruited and NCSA and those kind of websites are really about is communicating a student athlete's profile and talent and grades to the college coach community. That's about getting recruited to go to college. What we're talking about with this name, image, likeness is being able to go out to the public and say, hey, look at me. I'm this great athlete. I put on soccer camps in your local community, and I've got this big name that everybody knows, and come to my camp. Those kinds of things, or the Boost Mobile kids who, those twins, right? So they're a little bit, there's the purpose of those sites is, I think, a little bit different. However, I always think that when a new door opens, you find a merger of things happening that weren't allowed before, but now it opens this giant door for, all new things you didn't even think were possible. So who knows what's going to happen? But I do believe, like, for example, when your student athlete fills out a recruiting form on a recruiting questionnaire on a school's website, there will be a question there. I can almost promise you, all of them will start having questions about, do you utilize name, image, likeness rules, and how are you doing that? Tell us about that. Send us to whatever websites or social media accounts or whatever that you have, and so that we can monitor that and be aware of it. So.
Definitely. Well, that's the key thing is getting that information, as you said, up front for the athletics, for the colleges, for us as advisors, and all these different sources. So Claire is asking, do the state guidelines apply to the student's state of residence or the state of the colleges where it's located?
I think you need to consider that it could be both. I don't know the answer to that question. Although, like, again, if you're at a college, then you have to, I would assume that you would live by the rules of that college. But if you live in if your residency is in a different state because you're an out-of-state student, great question. Yeah, I don't know. And these are all things that if you can't go to your local, if your local athletics board doesn't know the answer to these questions, call the NCAA, because I think that they're the ones who are the source of this information, and I would use them as the primary source of any answers that you need to receive. And again, I would be patient with it, because you might hear, we haven't decided on that yet, or we don't have any clear answers for you, or please be patient while we it's under discussion in our committees. That's a great question. And unfortunately, again, like I said, I am not, I hesitate to call myself an expert on this one yet, because I don't know all the answers. I will tell you, I have not had a single athlete yet that I have worked with where this has become an issue. Just most of the kids that I'm working with aren't aren't utilizing that path.
So the original question that I posed and I put in the description, is this a seismic wave or just a mere little ripple?
I think it's a seismic wave for a very small amount, for a very small group of kids. I think for them, it is going to be life-changing. For most of the kids out there, it's going to be a ripple that they may be able to take advantage of a little bit here and there, but at some point it kind of gets drowned out. But like I said, every college coach, every college athletic director department is going to have to be dealing with this now on top of all the other things that they deal with to make sure that people are in compliance. Compliance offices in college athletic departments are very busy places. And it's funny, if you've ever talked to a compliance officer before, it's like this rule book comes spewing out of their heads. They are just, they know the rules. I mean, they have been tested on the rules and they know the rules very clearly. And if you can't get a clear answer out of them, they will call the NCAA and make sure that they clarify. So I do believe that there's lots of places you can go to get your questions answered. But I think that, it's going to be a big impact for a small amount of kids. And then, but that's just my anticipation. We'll see what happens. I've been wrong before. So
yeah, we'll see what the future brings, right? No.
Right. We have 2 questions in the chat. Do you think that athletic programs will start offering college athletes business type courses or workshops on managing money earned from NIL?
I would say maybe not. Who knows? Maybe they're planning on courses, but my anticipation is that part of the training that will be involved in making sure that everybody is in compliance with this is to make sure that anybody who is choosing to take advantage of it has some background in, again, how to manage that. I would anticipate that many schools, and again, it's kind of about resources. Right? If you're Notre Dame, if you're USC, if you got some, big basketball, big football, then you want to make sure that you are not only in compliance, but that you're maybe being a little proactive about helping your kids deal with this, your student athletes. If you're a small school with 1,200, 1,000 students, and, maybe you don't have the money to really you just do your best to manage it and make sure, and I don't know how proactive you can be at that point. So I think you'll see a variation in that.
Are there any potential issues for international athletes?
I did read on the frequently asked questions that the international athletes can take advantage of these opportunities. However, they should be asking the NCAA or the universities where they are being recruited, be upfront about what it is that they're doing, so that, again, they make sure that, again, especially while we're in this temporary period where things haven't been completely finalized yet, that whatever it is that they're doing is not going to cause problems later down the line. That's a great question. And I did read that international students can take advantage, but they just need to be open book.
I think that's probably the best course of action, right? Is just to be as upfront as you possibly can. And then, then you don't have to worry about, well, have I disclosed or have I told somebody what I'm doing or I'm thinking about doing? Because now students might start doing it earlier,
earlier and earlier. I mean, you can imagine freshmen in high school who are already know they're top athletes, and they've already played ODP, like they're already on Olympic development programs. They're already on that path, and they're like, oh yeah, we're on this.
Absolutely. I mean, you've got gaming, students who are in gaming, and they have channels, and they're doing all of this as early as middle school. So, and maybe even earlier, but yeah, so it'll be interesting. So Katie, thank you so much. And if somebody wants to learn more, how do they reach you, and what services do you offer?
So I have 2 different websites. My client-facing website, the one that I send my families to, is www.collegefitoc.com. On that website, I actually, for any counselor who's mostly focused on academics and wants to add athletics to their mix, but they don't want to do the athletics themselves, I have a co-counseling arrangement. It's a contract. You can contact me through that website, click on co-counseling, and ask me, I do a free 30-minute session, so we can chat about how that works. But I'm happy to work with you so that you don't have to turn away a kid who's an athlete, and you can do the academic piece, and then I can just help out with the athletics. And then I also have another website that David Steckel and I started, and I am now running. David passed away in January from COVID. So I am now running this by myself. It's www.thestudentathleteadvisors.com. And that website is for counselors. And we have lots of educational, we've got a counselor's manual. We have a 11-hour webinar series to get a certificate in athletic recruiting. And so we have lots of good information there for counselors. And you can contact me through either one of those websites. My email address is there, and forms and things like that. And I do my best, but I am just a one-woman show. So I know a lot of people have, they can't get me by email, they're texting me, and they're, so, hopefully once the kids all go back to school, I've got my own kids in high school right now, and we just got an exchange student 2 days ago from Norway. So things will calm down a little bit in a few, another week or so. And I'm happy to help you guys out and whatever you need. And don't ever hesitate to contact me.
Thank you. Yeah, and I can attest to that too. And I see Sunny's made a comment. I've worked with Dave for many years, and we work in tandem. I do the academic, and I was always so glad. I mean, I know something about athletics. I'm not, ignorant about it, but I don't know the details about tennis or baseball or volleyball or things. And so it was always such a relief for me to be able to say, you work with the college, with them on the sports side, and I'll help you with the academic side. So, and
right.
We really do want to, remember Dave. It was very, we lost a great colleague in January when he passed away from COVID.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. I've seen his wife since, and it's nice that I've been able to keep in touch with his family. So, and one other thing I did want to mention, because I'm seeing so many people in the chat mentioning the course, and they've done it, and I see so many familiar names. We do have a page on the studentathleteadvisors.com where it's a network page, and many of the counselors who have taken our course are listed on that page. So if I'm not able to help you, those other people have taken the course, and many of them are actively working with student athletes and have, a perfectly great level of confidence in and experience working with them. So I would encourage you to look at that network page on that website, and then you can find other counselors around the country if you would like to. I'm based in California, but if you're looking for somebody who might be in another part of the country, or even some international counselors, we've got lots of people out there, and we certainly want to spread the love. There's quite a number of us that do this on a regular basis. So
yeah, and maybe even though this isn't affecting, we're not sure if this is a ripple or a seismic wave yet, it might prompt more students to look at sports as an option or opportunity. So it might be something that we all have to do. So thank you, Katie. Thank you very much. This has been very informative, and I know people are looking forward to getting the presentation as well. I'll have that posted on our website. We'll get this made available. Everyone who registered will get a copy of this. So thank you for your time, and thank you for your candidness and expertise in this area. So,
thank you so much.
So I'm going to make an announcement. I am so excited. I just got informed this week that I am the newest, or one of the newest, CEP. So I now am officially a certified education planner. And so I am just very excited. It's been a long time coming. I know many people be surprised that I'm not already, but I wasn't. I've tried 3 times, and I've had things come up that just kept me from doing the exam. That was my last thing. So I just got notified this week. I'm now a CEP. So if you're thinking about doing it and you haven't done it yet, and you're have some questions, please contact me. I will tell you, I've went through all of those feelings, and and I can attest to you that it was much easier than I thought it was going to be. It wasn't as stressful as I thought it was going to be, and the team, Steve Antonoff, made it so comfortable to do. So I would highly, highly recommend, as a professional, if you've got 5 years or more experience, and you should do it. You should apply for your CEP. And if you don't, it should be a goal for you in the future. So you're going to be seeing CEP. I haven't put it on my signature yet, but that's my newest thing. So I'm very, very excited to be able to do that. So next week, we're going to have Louisa Raby. So this month, we're kind of, because this was such a timely topic, Katie and I decided to offer this to you in August, just as your students were going back to school. So usually I do the Friday forums the first Friday and the third Friday of the month. So next week is going to be the third Friday of the month. Louisa Raby is going to talk about medical admission. So we're going to talk about BSMD, direct admit, just what do our students need to know? What is the landscape for health professionals in the health field? So you'll want to join me for that. And then in September, I'm going to have people from the Grown and Flown website. They're going to join us for a webinar on helping students manage homesickness in the first semester. And so again, if you have interesting topics or people that you want me to interview, just send me a note at cindymcdonald.com. And don't forget, my name's spelled with 2 Y's. If you spell it with an I, C-I-N-D-Y, I'll never get it. So, all right, everybody, have a great Friday. Katie, thank you very much. Carmen, you're going to be with us 1 more week, so we'll have to have you share next week what you're doing and what your next steps are. Okay?
Yes, it's super exciting.
All right. Okay. All right, everybody, have a great weekend, and thanks for joining us today. And thank you for all the congratulations. I really appreciate it. And again, Katie, thank you very much. And I'm sure you'll hear from lots of people.
Great. I'm happy to help.
All right. All right. Take care, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.